What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL show, the official channel of the All 22 fantasy football platform. It's the only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. To learn more and sign up, go to all-22.com. Pretty soon, people, it's going to be draft season. We are going to be there. This is the time to go and start creating your leagues in All 22. So go to all-22.com or the App Store today. Ray, I want to get right into it, buddy. I don't want to hear about your day. I don't want to hear how you're doing. To be honest, again, I'm still kind of like sad about the Packer stuff, so I don't really care, to be honest with you, buddy. But there is a lot of big news happening right now in the world, right? In football. Let's talk about football. I don't want to talk about the world. In football. And while the stuff happening right now may not have an immediate impact on your fantasy team, there's going to be major implications to the players on your team based on what is happening right now. So I think it's worth kind of taking another look right now and saying, okay, John Harbaugh signed with the Giants. What does that mean for his team? What players do we expect this to impact? So maybe that's a good way to start, right? Why don't we talk about the coaching hires and that one in particular? Is there anybody in particular that you're looking at and going, this is huge for them?
No, because I think it's huge for everybody in New York because they just need a stabilizing vet, culture driving head coach. I have some concerns that not that the game has totally passed him by, but that we've kind of seen the best days of John Harbaugh already. Like, I think it's a legitimate concern for someone who's been in the league as long as he has. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl already. So, I mean, it's not like a hot take to say that, is it? Like to say, hey, he's probably not going to win another Super Bowl again. But I do think that's a partial concern. But the main thing with the Giants is that before you even think about Super Bowls, you have to learn to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. And this organization has just not done that. They've just been flailing around for a decade and a half at this point now. So I think Harbaugh can get them to a nice, steady state, almost like the Jacksonville Jaguars did with Doug Peterson after the Urban Meyer debacle. They got some young talent in there. They kind of set a good culture, and Peterson wasn't the guy in this day and age to take them any further than he did. But he at least got everything back to baseline, and then you hired a new young coach to go ahead and take the next step. I could see a similar path for the Giants. So in a sense, obviously the big name is Jackson Dart, and yes, I think if you stabilize the organization around him and make just everything just more professional and less chaotic in New York, that's a great thing for Jackson Dart overall. But I don't think this is a young offensive savant like Liam Cohen going in there and just changing everything drastically and putting you in the top 6 on offense in year one. I don't think this is one of those scenarios. I think this is more of an organizational impact that benefits someone like Jackson Dart because he's a rising tide that lifts all boats with the New York Giants. So in that sense, it's like nobody but everybody at the same time.
Dude, I could not disagree with you more on so much of what you just said. I think he is a game-changing coach. I don't think there are that many coaches in the NFL that can take your team from 3-14 to playoff bound. I think John Harbaugh is one of those coaches. Like we talked about Mike Vrabel a year ago. Like to me, this is that. I'm not saying the Giants are going to be playing in the NFC Championship next year like the Patriots are this year for the AFC, but I do think that this will dramatically I love that just happened to you because it always is me. I'm so happy.
I don't even think that was me. I have no idea what that was.
Oh, that was you. All right. I think this has huge impact on the New York Giants and what we should expect from their organization. Again, similar to what we expected of the Patriots last year. And what was the thing that got impacted the most for the Patriots is that offensive line was terrible last year. And this year, not only is it serviceable, it's actually pretty good without a bunch of big names getting added to that offensive line. Will Campbell, we both had as like a promising guard prospect, and he is a starting left tackle for them, playing again at a serviceable level. I look at Marcus Bowe. I look at Andrew Thomas. I look at Jermaine Illuminor. And I'm looking at those guys saying, a year from now, are we going to be talking about the Giants offensive linemen as a hot commodity? To me, if you have Giants offensive linemen, congratulations, you waited a long time and you finally got there, right?
If you have
think
Giants offensive linemen, there's something wrong with you.
Andrew Thomas is amazing. And there are guys, Illuminor played really well this year. I'm just saying I could expect it to be very good next year. And that is the area of the Giants with this hire that I'm looking at going a year from now. We're going to be very excited about the Giants offensive line. Jeff Hafley signs with Miami. I might know a little bit more about that than you, just because he was the Packers defensive coordinator and he did a good job. Like, I don't want to boast too much for this guy, because honestly, I don't expect much. But the one thing that I did notice when he joined the Packers is the Packers kind of had this run of drafting first and second round defensive players that they had as kind of like that athlete tag, like guys that Quay Walker, right? They don't know how to play linebacker, but they're such a good athlete that we're just going to plug them into the system and it'll work. There's probably 10 different examples of that happening before Jeff Hafley arrived and those players not working out. He comes into town and they don't really change the script of how they drafted those players, but I actually saw those players kind of learning how to play within their role. Quay Walker took a huge step up. They draft Edgerrin Cooper. He looks like an absolute stud for us. Evan Williams and Javon Bullard at safety, like both of those guys found their role and look really good. So what I expect for Miami, unfortunately, maybe not on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side of the ball, I do expect a lot of these kind of picks that they've used in past years that haven't really started to pan out, maybe starting to look a little bit better, right? So for Miami, focus on those players. If you have Miami players on defense, who was the guy they drafted a year or two ago in the first round that looks okay, but hasn't really taken that step? We talked about Kenneth Grant a lot. Penn State edge rusher, blanking on his name.
Chop Robinson,
right? Those are the guys I'd be looking at going, okay, a year from two or now, right now their stock's really far down. A year or two from now, I'm going to be looking at them and saying, these are guys that are maybe not everyday starters for my team, but they've come a long way and they're now very serviceable for me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The roster as a whole still has a long way to go. So I'm not sure you're going to see a lot of synergistic sort of, hey, defensive linemen helping out those secondary players or making life easier for the linebackers. It's going to be all schematics and coaching impact. So because of that, you probably were already, but I'm staying away from the offense completely outside of like Aaron Brewer and maybe Jalen Waddle as my wide receiver 3 in all 22. Outside of that, just kind of, stick to maybe 2 or 3 guys on defense, Grant, Robinson, maybe a linebacker here. That's about it. I'm not getting too excited too quickly because the roster is mostly a wasteland. It needs a lot of work. And typically defensive coaches, you'll see that immediate impact with some bright spots here or there on the roster. But defensive head coaches, it's kind of more of a slow burn impact, whereas offensive guys, offensive coordinators becoming head coaches, they kind of can imprint their system. And by the end of year one, you're seeing some big results. We see it time and time again. It takes a little more time to cook with those defensive guys. So you'll see it in blips like a Grant, like a Robinson, but then by and large come back in 27 or 28. And then you'll really start to see more pieces to get excited about on the Dolphins overall, but especially on the defensive side. So just exercise some patience.
On the offensive side of the ball, we don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback next year. Yes, Tua is under contract, but we don't expect him to be back. So it's really hard to be excited about the offensive side of the ball. It's also going to be huge to see who he chooses as his OC. But I think we both think there aren't that many offensive minds significantly better than the one they just let go with their head coach, right? So I don't expect their offense to take a step forward. It's going to be a slow burn. Why don't you tell us about what you think Kevin Stefanski and the Falcons, anything there that kind of gets your interest?
The big thing is still going to be just health. What happens at quarterback with Michael Penix? Or is it's probably going to be Kirk Cousins' show, which to me, I think Kirk Cousins is a great fit for Stefanski, that wide zone play action. I love it.
We always called it in Cleveland, right? It was always supposed to happen that Kirk went to Cleveland and was the quarterback there, and it never did. So we are seeing it just not in Cleveland potentially.
It's about time. And now Kirk Cousins is like 38 years old or whatever he is, with one less Achilles than he had back when we wanted to see this marriage in the first place. But it's here now. So, maybe the timing wasn't perfect, but better late than never. I think the fit is awesome. So I do think, regardless, I think Kirk Cousins is going to start the season in 2026. And I think he's going to do well enough to not give up that job. So I think Penix is going to be
$35 million. Oh my gosh. I don't want to talk about that anymore, but I feel like I have to.
It's a great fit. Forget the money. Put the money. It's a great fit. This is what we've wanted. And he unlocked Kyle Pitts. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
But I just think stylistically that offense, Kirk Cousins is the biggest benefactor. With the defensive side of the ball, I think if you were excited about some of their recent picks with James Pearson, kind of the overhaul that they were doing, if Jeff Ulbrich remains as the defensive coordinator, which I believe is the case, I think that's a huge win because you were already excited about that defense. They already exceeded your expectations in 2025. So now if you get to keep that going, but with the offensive side of the ball kind of finding their footing and, playing better complementary football, those young edge rushers are a year older now and kind of more getting that more experience for the Falcons there and kind of rounding into form for that entire unit. I think it's an A++ all around. So I think honestly, across the board, you should be excited for anyone on the Falcons. I think that's another rising tides lifts all boats situation. If it's a good fit with Stefanski and Cousins, like we believe it is, that helps Pitts, that helps London, that helps the line. Bijan's already Bijan, and he's already at top of the leaderboard and what have you. But it certainly doesn't hurt. And then again, on the defensive side of the ball, more continuity with that young talent, getting more time in the system and just growing and developing as NFL players is absolutely huge. So I think it's positive vibes all around in Atlanta based on this hire. And I think Jeff Ulbrich being retained is the key to that. It kind of brings it all together.
Yeah, I'm excited for some of those offensive players on the Falcons because we've been kind of waiting for years to see that offense really pop. And this year, Drake London kind of continued doing what he was doing. Kyle Pitts kind of showed some flashes. Bijan was Bijan. But I kind of think there's more to unpack with even just those three players. So I expect next year the Falcons with Stefanski kind of look special. Like it's going to be a cool team if they could figure out quarterback. Last one we have here, right? The fourth hire that's happened is Robert Saleh to the Titans. I never fully feel great about a team with a young offensive weapon like Cam Ward, right? You draft your quarterback and you get him in there, and then you hire a defensive-minded head coach. It's not that it's never worked before, right? We saw it work with CJ Stroud. I don't feel great about that happening because you have to be an exceptional quarterback for that to really pan out, or the team needs to choose a really great offensive mind at OC for that to work out. We talked about how the offensive weapons in the Titans facility just aren't there yet. They need a lot more. I don't really feel great about Saleh. He wasn't able to fix the Jets' offensive line woes while he was there. So is it going to be more of the same there? And then on the defensive side of the ball, he probably will help that defensive front start to look better. But Jeffrey Simmons, my boy Tavondre Sweat, they looked good, right? Like I don't think they get elevated so much from this hire. Maybe if they go and draft a Ruben Bain, that's exciting, right? And they had some different elements to that defense. But if you don't figure out the offensive side of the ball there for the Titans, I'm going to have a really hard time if I had just made an investment in Cam Ward and it's not panning out yet. Losing my voice.
Oh, don't get choked up, Chris. Would you be excited if I said, hey, Chris, Mike McDaniel will be the offensive coordinator for Robert Saleh in Tennessee?
Big time.
Would that excite you?
Oh, big time. But do you really expect that to happen?
I kind of do.
Okay.
I kind of do. And I'm excited about it kind of because I don't think stylistically that's the best fit for Cam Ward. Like Cam Ward isn't like particular play action timing quarterback. That's not necessarily.
No, he doesn't game manage. No.
Right. Mm-mm. So there's going to be an adjustment there. However, I certainly do trust Mike McDaniel to make those adjustments. I think as a pure offensive mind, he's fantastic. And you have to, if you have negative vibes about him because of his reign as head coach of the Dolphins, you got to put that aside and just focus on offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, which is one of the best in the game. So I do think that adjustment can be made. So it's not the perfect marriage, but considering what Cam Ward has been dealing with in year one as a rookie, the arrow would certainly be pointing up there. So I do think with this in mind, you have to sort of focus more now on the offensive side of the ball in the upcoming draft and build around Cam Ward and, just kind of see where it goes. Because if you have a mind like McDaniel and you can get another receiver in there, I think Dane Brugler's latest mock draft might have had Carnell Tate going to the Titans. You get him a number one bona fide receiver there with an offensive mind like McDaniel, things start to come together. It's still not going to be great in year two because this was not a 1 or 2 year build in Tennessee. This is 3 or 4 years before everything can truly come together. But at least you can hopefully start to see some semblance and glimmer of hope in Tennessee, where it was just an absolute mess this year. So yeah, fine. Hire Saleh, hire the defensive guy, but you got to invest on the offensive side of the ball to see those returns, because that's where the dearth or the lack of talent is on that roster. So yeah. I think you have to exercise patience.
It's going to be interesting because I think people were maybe assuming that Cliff Kingsbury was going to get a head coaching job. I don't think that's going to happen now, especially the way they parted ways in Washington. And I wonder if he's somebody that now has to find a situation like this and step into it and prove that he can really do it for more than a year, right, of good showing before he gets another head coaching opportunity. So that's another name I would look out for there. And I would be excited for if I was a Titans fan. Let's talk about the game that was yesterday. And I want you to lead this conversation. You're more of the in-college season college football fan, where I'm more of the let's check out the game script and break it down. So tell me, yesterday we had Fernando Mendoza, we had Ruben Bain Jr., we had a couple, both teams had a ton of NFL talent on the field, but what stuck out to you?
I feel like I'm being a negative Nancy here, but I think Mendoza struggled a little bit on some of the tight window man coverage throws in the second half. Miami really came out and just said, all right, we're getting diced up in the zone game. We're going to do some press man, too high shell, and make Mendoza beat us. And kind of couldn't really do it for a while. Remember the big score in the second half prior to the fantastic run on 4th and 5, and he sealed the game, national championship moment. All the credit to Mendoza. Don't get me wrong, but talking strictly from an evaluation perspective, they kind of slowed him down a bit with the press man game. And when he got into those tighter man coverage windows, a large part of that was the fact now on the other side, Ruben Bain and Akeem Messidor were just beating the shit out of everybody of that Indiana offensive line. They were just whooping folks, and Mendoza didn't have a lot of time. So that's a big part of that. But I think the most translatable takeaway that I had was when we really start to dive into Fernando Mendoza, which we're going to do here very soon, I'm going to have a keen eye on his man coverage throws and how he dealt with that against some of the top opponents, because that was the weaker part of his game during the national championship last night. So I want to see how that looked against Ohio State, how that looked against Penn State, which was their closest game of the year, basically, because they never even trailed in the playoffs. So fantastic run by Indiana. I want to see how he looked against tight man coverage. That's going to be my big takeaway when evaluating what everybody seems to have as the consensus number one quarterback in this class. And from what I can tell from here, as we sit here today on January 20th, 2026, I think that's absolutely the right take to have. This is not a deep quarterback class at all after Moore went to school. But, don't just, Heisman, national champion, he's the guy. Sure, he's the guy, but what is the guy? Is the guy a potential top 5 quarterback in the league for 15 years? Is he a top 12 quarterback for 12 years in the NFL? Those details I'm most excited to really dig into and try to find out when we head into draft season. Outside of that, like I said, Ruben Bain, fantastic player, super strong, super productive, but the measurements are a potential killer there. I think 30-inch long arms, which I think is like a historic outlier for an edge rusher. Yes, tape comes first, but you can't ignore data with zero exceptions so far. If no player in the history of the NFL has even made a Pro Bowl with his purported arm length, you can't just think you know better than a half century's worth of data. That accounts for something. So I'm interested in that. Akeem Messidor as well. Diego Pons, I think there's a lot of versatile players from both teams. And Diego Pons, the corner from Indiana. I should probably get used to saying that now that we're entering draft season. But that's another one, undersized player who's super tough and productive. Keontae George, corner from Miami. I'm not sure he's a corner, if he's a safety, kind of a nickel guy, almost like a pseudo Brian Branch, but I'm not sure he has quite the same tools. There's a lot of interesting pieces from both sides of the national championship game last night. Obviously, the headliners, Mendoza, and then those defensive ends from Miami. But tons of talent littered throughout. I can't wait to dive in and start doing some film reviews here in the coming weeks, because that's our fun time. That's like our Christmas. So I can't wait.
I'm pumped to review Mendoza and talk about that in more detail. I do think we learned a lot about him yesterday, and we'll break it down when we do our film. I think some major takeaways just at a high level is it's important to see composure. I think he shows us that he has composure. It's important to see a guy not get flustered. I don't think he gets flustered. I was somewhat surprised with his pocket presence in that turbulence, right? Like maybe he didn't hit every throw that he could have and should have, but he kept his composure. He moved well in the pocket, better than I thought he could. Against a really strong defensive front. So a lot of good takeaways too, even if it wasn't. And again, we're going to talk about, is he top 10 pick, that we've seen in the last 5 years? What does it look like? Where does he rank amongst the quarterback prospects that we've had? So we'll get into that. I'm not going to blow that now. But then, Ruben Bain, yes, the measurements are going to be a concern. I think the Jets at number 2 have a really difficult decision to make for them. But at the same time, it's almost reminiscent of seeing some of those old school players, because Ruben Bain plays mean football, and that's super fun to watch. Again, measurement wise, he's probably not even close, but James Harrison, the way that he used to play football for Pittsburgh, super mean and aggressive, just bull rush you and knock you over, knock your teeth out. Ruben Bain has a little bit of that to him. So I'm super excited to do his film review too. But okay, we also wanted to talk about some of the players, right? We have players from this playoff run, the NFL playoff run, that I think, whether or not, again, you're not playing playoff football in all 22, but for next season, for regular fantasy or all 22, there's major stuff that's happening now. So starting with quarterbacks, right? I had 2 guys that I think stock up, and then there's 2 guys where I think you could say stock up, but I'm not ready to yet, and I wanted your opinion. So first up, I'll go the stock up guys, and the 2 guys I have are Caleb Williams and Bo Nix, okay? I am very, very happy with what I saw from both of these quarterbacks. Just for context, right? Caleb Williams in 2 games, 70.1 passing grade, but I think he had to take an immense amount of risk and put it on his shoulders. And I think he backed it up, right? 9 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. The games all fell on his shoulders. And I think what we want, as if you have shares in Caleb Williams, is you don't want to just see it in the fourth quarter. You don't want to just see it in overtime. You want to see a consistent game for him. And I agree, he's not there yet. But I think people forget he's also 24 years old. Same age as Bo Nix, right? People are giving Bo Nix a lot of credit. Caleb Williams may actually be younger. I don't have it in front of me.
He's got to be younger.
He's probably a year younger. Yeah. So we're talking about a guy that at 24 years old took his team deep into the playoffs for the first time in years for them. And when the game mattered, he did it, right? It was all on him. There's only one other quarterback that I've seen do that. All right, there's 2. It's Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, right? The 2 quarterbacks that, when it mattered most, made the plays that you wanted to see them make in a way that's not Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen, I would say, does it too, but a bit different. I think Caleb, Mahomes, and Rodgers all had to do these things with their arms that I don't know if there's another quarterback on earth that can do. And that's what I'm really excited about. Now, at 25 years old next year, we need to see him learn to, control his arm a little bit better with accuracy, play in and play out all game long, play with intensity all game long. But I'm very excited about Caleb Williams. I'll let you address that, then I'll talk about Bo Nix.
Here's my thing with Caleb Williams. he seems to have this thing with Rome Odunze. I think he needs to have this thing with Luther Burden.
Yeah.
I think DJ Moore, that's done. I think there's, everybody saw the play and the criticism he got for the interception in overtime. And I just think that it's not working. It didn't work. DJ Moore's out of there. But Luther Burden, every time they connected late in the year, you kind of held your breath because Caleb can make the throw that makes you go, wow. Luther Burden takes the routine throw and can make you go, wow, after the catch. And these are two young guys that are kind of coming up together here. I think that's going to be the duo when I look forward to the Bears offense, what it looks like in year 2 under Ben Johnson and kind of how they grow and evolve. Odunze is going to be the downfield guy, big target and all that. And that's great. I don't want to undersell what he can bring to the table. But I think sort of the special connection that can really ascend things in Chicago is going to be Caleb to Luther Burden, because they have, like you said, that knack, that ability to just do things that other human beings that get paid to do this can't do. So I'm most excited about that. Agreed overall. You can't expect always to rely on the heroics that we saw all year from Caleb Williams late in games. You can't rely on going down 17 points and coming back to win in the last minute of the game. You can't do that over and over and over again. But you won't have to if they progress the way they should and the way you'd expect them to in year 2 under a great offensive head coach. Just year 2 of a connection between, these two special talents, and just another year of that roster, because the roster wasn't that strong on paper across the board in Chicago. It really wasn't. I don't think it was, potential NFC championship bound roster like at all.
Just the offense was, the defense was not.
Right. So I think you get some more complimentary football there as well. I think, you could stay on script on offense a bit more. I think that helps everybody, but I really look forward to the Caleb Williams to Luther Burden connection moving forward in 2026 and beyond. That's what I'm excited about. Everything else you said, 100% agree with. There were some questions about Caleb early on and taking the sacks that he took and everything. And that was a wart in his game. It still is to an extent, but you could see that that's becoming a bit of a thing of the past. And he is evolving. He's taking those next steps. So you're a fan of the Bears. You should be incredibly excited about this. And yeah, let's get the ball more to Luther Burden.
Yeah. I was watching some of these games and I'm looking at the person next to me and I'm going, why do they keep going at Rome? Like he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's not a bad football player, but he's not in my opinion, the guy that should be getting the 10 targets. It should be Luther Burden. I do expect that to change next year. Okay. Bo Nix is the other guy I had mentioned that I think stock up. And again, the ankle injury, breaking his ankle, devastating, right? He's not going to be able to finish out this playoff series. And that's brutal for not just him, but the Broncos in general. But if you look at what he did against Buffalo, he played fantastic football. And I think this is a guy, we talked about it. Sometimes he needs a script. He's not a individual game breaker the way that Caleb is, but in his own right, he does some things that are extremely special, like put the team on his back and not make a ton of mistakes. And again, follow a script maybe to the point that led them to this kind of level of success. I think it's pretty special. 78.8 passing grade in the games that he played. The biggest thing that stuck out to me as well, right, is like people didn't think Bo Nix had a special arm. I don't know if you remember, Ray, but when we did film breakdown from that class, I argued that Bo Nix had the strongest arm of the group of prospects. And that was with Michael Penix being there, Caleb, Jaden Daniels. I thought he had the strongest arm. And when it mattered most in the big games, you saw that his arm did not have limitations. And to me, the ankle is going to be fine, right? It's an ankle injury. He will be back at the beginning of next year. I have no concerns that Bo Nix is going to be a great leader for that team and somebody that if you haven't invested in, you should in all 22.
Okay, but what if Jarrett Stidham comes out in the Jarrett Stidham revenge game against the Pats and just like, and
Nick
lets
Foles.
him hang and he takes exactly. What if he pulls a Nick Foles? and looks just as good as Bo Nix, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, is it Bo Nix? Is it Sean Payton? What are we doing here?
Listening to this, clip this, and in a week, play it back to Ray. All right. I don't expect that to happen. I hope Stidham looks good, right? I hope for the Broncos' sake he does well. But no. Sorry.
Okay. No. I would have to put my money on Mike Vrabel versus Jarrett Stidham if I had to put money on one side of this matchup.
Likewise.
I also wouldn't be shocked, though, if Sean Payton can kind of call and maneuver and manufacture 27 points from this offense.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world.
I'm not sold on either of these teams, right? I think the AFC is wide open. I think if Bo Nix was healthy, I think they'd probably destroy the Patriots. But since he's not, I do think this is more of a toss-up game. And I think the NFC teams kind of run away with it. I'm going to be completely honest. I think the NFC is much stronger, and that's what we're going to see at the Super Bowl. But staying on this conversation, okay, the players that at quarterback that I'm not sure about, and I'm curious, again, what you think, because I may be being a little too hard on these guys, but Sam Darnold, I'm psyched about what he did. But what I've been saying for a while now is that end of year Sam Darnold was bad, right? And historically has been bad at the end of the year. The end of this season, the last 4 games of the regular season, he had sub 65 grading every single game. And he had more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws, okay? This game against San Francisco felt like a no-pressure game for him, right? Team starts off with a special teams touchdown, and they were never going to lose that game. They won by 40. Like, come on. I don't think there was any pressure on him. Did he look good? Absolutely. Did he do what he was asked? Absolutely. 2 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. It's what you want to see from Sam Darnold. But now he has to go play the Rams. And he played the Rams twice this year in the regular season. He had a 39.2 grade in the first game and 63.2 in his second game. What version of Sam Darnold are we going to see in this game? Can his defense make it kind of a no-sweat situation again? I don't think so. Not against this Rams team. I think it's going to be a competitive game. And I don't know what version of Sam Darnold we're going to see. So while I'm happy with what he did in the game against San Francisco, I am not ready to sit here and say stock up next year for Sam Darnold.
Okay. If I'm an all-22 Sam Darnold owner, this is a no-sweat game for me, because the negative trends that we see from Sam Darnold pretty much all begin like in week 17 when the season's pretty much
week
over.
13. It's like when your playoffs begin. So I don't know what you're saying here. You're trying to sell them, but no.
He got you the bye week already by being like QB3 for the entire season up to that point. So he just takes the first round of the playoffs off, just like you do. I agree with what you're saying. Because the Rams can make QB 11 in the NFL look like QB 25. That happens. It doesn't mean that Sam Darnold is all of a sudden QB 25. So relax, Chris. All right, relax.
I didn't say that, but I think right now the conversation has gotten to the point where people are going, Sam Darnold is a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying maybe let's not put him in the top 10 before we see him show up in a game that really, really matters and proves that he belongs to be there.
I think you could do that, because I think if you list 10 quarterbacks that you think would be that top 10 quarterback if it's not Darnold, I could pick out 4 names where you could say the same exact thing about. So I think he's in that tier, that there's kind of a rotation of 7 guys that kind of fill out the back end of that top 10 list. And he's one of those guys. And over the last 2 years, he's been in the front half of that rotation. So I think you're going to see the warts pop up, because he is not a bona fide no-brainer week in and week out top flight guy. And in a matchup like the Rams, he can struggle. The saving grace for him, like you kind of alluded to this week and moving forward, is that Seahawks defense took a massive step between 2024 and 2025. So they can keep him in the game. If it takes Sam Darnold in this offense 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters to kind of really figure things out, and, by halftime, they only scored 9 points, they're still in the game. Yeah. If I always bring it back to this. Okay. But if that was Sam Darnold on the Cowboys, they're down by 24 already at halftime if they haven't figured it out yet. So that is a saving grace in the sense that he doesn't have to press and force things if right away they're not clicking on all cylinders. The Seahawks defense has afforded him that luxury. And that's good because I think for all of Sam Darnold's great traits and all the great things that he showed us over the past 2 seasons now, sometimes he still kind of has those slumps, those games where he just gets stuck in the mud, and he needs some time to kind of work through that. And he can at any given point in time. Him and Jackson Smith and Jigba can just, click. You have, a big run from Kenneth Walker or something. And next thing you know, that offense is humming and you look and holy shit, they scored 2 touchdowns in their last 9 offensive plays like that.
This is a family show, Ray. Watch your language.
We're 35 minutes in. I think that with
it's okay.
The YouTube algorithm, it's okay now. So like that happens. That's a thing. So yes, he probably is not going to have his highest graded game, right? If he eclipses 70, I'm cool with that. Not that it matters.
If he eclipses 70, I think they win the game, right? And that's what I want to see.
Well, he eclipsed 70 and didn't really do much against San Francisco either. Like he just kind of was there.
But he did exactly. But like, let's see it against a team where he's actually going to have to potentially have moments where he needs to win the game for the team, right?
Fair.
That's what I want to see. But there's another quarterback that you mentioned might be in that same mix. And I still do not know if they should be bumped up for what they did. And that's Jordan Love. Okay. So Jordan Love, people are looking at the stat line going 4 touchdown passes, right? 3 big time throws, only 1 turnover worthy play. That's a phenomenal game for him. And while I agree with you that it was promising and he was able to make, his team compete and put them in the game to compete, made the big throws when it mattered, I still worry that he's so reliant on the script that the throws that we're seeing him make, while they're perfect, are the throws that it is designed to make, right? It's not out of structure, because when I see Jordan Love start to go out of structure, I get concerned, right? And I think the thing that was pretty eye-opening to me was really the end of the game, right? The Packers are down. They need to score to come back to win. They make one play to get down the field, and now they're in kind of striking range of the end zone. The last play of the game, Jordan Love fumbles the snap, and you could almost like smell the frustration on his breath. He steps up in what was like a fine pocket, right? He wasn't getting like super pressured, recovers the fumble, steps up, and it looks like he gave up. Like he threw the ball, and that is the turnover-worthy play I think that, we have listed here. He throws the ball with not much angst, not much, like it was very inaccurate. He basically threw it to the Bears defenders. He didn't really give his team the chance, right? And those are the plays where it's out of structure that I go, is Jordan Love a guy that can separate? Can he actually win those big games when he needs to step out of the box and not rely on the script? For that reason alone, I don't know if Jordan Love is in that conversation of stock up. He's a top 10 definite NFL quarterback. To me, he's still sitting in that range. And unlike Caleb Williams, like this is a guy now that's, I think, 27 years old, right? 27, 28 years old. This is entering the prime of his career, and we need to see those games won very, very soon, or Jordan Love will always stay in that tier.
I think you nailed it. I'm not sure what this tells us, but Sam Darnold is only 1 year older than Jordan Love, right? 28 versus 27.
Yeah.
It just feels like Sam Darnold's been here for a decade, and he was incredibly young as a draft prospect. Yep. So, yeah, both these guys at this point now have been around the block. I have the same concerns about Jordan Love, but I can also sit here and say, if he has Tucker Kraft, if Christian Watson can stay healthy for more than 4 weeks out of the season, and he can actually just gel with these guys. I think Tucker Kraft gives everybody the best version of in-structure Jordan Love. Like Jordan Love is an in-structure quarterback, and when he has Tucker Kraft, they're like the best in-structure duo maybe in the league. Christian Watson, I think, is the one that sort of gets them outside of the box and kind of breaks that ceiling when he's on because of the downfield threat and how he can just flip the script entirely in just one play. And he hasn't gotten a lot of time with him. I think if Watson can stay healthy, I would like to give Jordan Love the 2026 season with Christian Watson. And, maybe Matthew Golden kind of, he kind of had a couple nice plays there at the end of the year too. He kind of enters the mix. But I want to see a full year of Jordan Love and Christian Watson to see if they can unlock that part of his game and kind of trigger that next step in the evolution of Jordan Love to become a quarterback who's also dangerous outside of structure. If you can do that, then I think there is still something there where Jordan Love can elevate his game and be among the bona fide top guys in the league, because as long as the floor's there and he's got some of the weapons there, he's always going to be one of the top names in the game, just down because of how efficient he is within the structure of the offense. But if they can just really just assimilate together and just unlock that extra phase of his game, the sky really is the limit, especially if that defense comes back healthy with some of the weapons they lost and everything. The Packers could still be incredibly dangerous. This is not just the Bears division to run with because Caleb Williams is going to be in year 2 under Ben Johnson and everything is just going to click. Like, no, there is still another level to this Packers offense and team as a whole that they can hit. Damn, that division is just going to be tough because you still have the Lions in there too. I mean, damn. So yes, I think there is still optimism for Jordan Love. I'm not ready to close the book on him just being in any given season quarterback 8 to 13, and you just kind of, figure out where he falls in a given year. I think there's more to it than that, or there could be more to it than that. Let me just see him with Christian Watson for 17 games, and then we'll see where he ends up.
I agree with your take. I don't like relying on that, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I need to see him be special on his own as well. But there are actually 2 names that I have here for the Packers as guys that I think stock up for next season. And Matthew Golden is one of them. I think what we saw in that game against the Bears was one of the best versions of Matthew Golden we've seen this season. And I think the conversation has been, why are the Packers not utilizing this guy more? I think next year we see a lot more of Matthew Golden. Excited for that. I think the other guy is Jordan Morgan. So stepped in at right tackle for this game for an injured Zach Tom, played 71 snaps, 0 sacks, 1 quarterback pressure, 77.1 PFF grade. And Rashad Walker is a free agent at the end of this year, right? So we're probably letting him walk. Maybe Jordan Morgan goes to the left side of the offensive line. But Jordan Morgan could be a guy that if you don't have, shares of, pretty good bet he's a starting left tackle in the NFL for one of the better offenses in the NFL. Parker Washington is another guy I just wanted to give a little shout out to. I think we saw some pretty special game from Parker Washington. Colston Loveland has had a lot of hype around him. Do you want to say anything about those 2 guys?
I wanted to point out that I didn't point anything out about Colston Loveland in my whole Bears fans, you got to be so excited rant. Yeah, man. Colston Loveland, incredibly talented, and he's got Ben Johnson. We saw what he did with Sam Laporta. Colston Loveland is another level of talent with no disrespect to Sam Laporta. So, yeah, you should be incredibly inside. That's what I mean. I think this offense runs through Burden and Loveland, and then you hit over the top with Odunze. I think that's the formula moving forward. And I think in year 2, when they can really sort of digest this thing and get comfortable on the finer details and really start to work the margins as a team, you're going to see that come to life. So yeah, I think this offense is going to run through Loveland and through Burden moving forward. And so stock up for sure for both of them. Yeah. Shout out to Parker Washington also for just being flat out good at football.
Love it. I have 2 minutes to go. So I'm going to run through some names just because I want to make sure we mention them. Seattle has to be psyched about their offensive line, right? Because I think we're seeing the best play of 2 of their guys. And again, go buy them. If you don't have them in all 22, go buy them. Abraham Lucas, we've said a lot about during our time at all 22, but it's been a bit of an up and down year. But when it mattered so far, 88.7 offensive grade in this past game against San Francisco, 53 snaps, 0 sacks, 0 hits. And then Gray Zabel, you could say the same exact thing. Kind of an up and down season, but when it mattered, 80.4 offensive grade, 0 sacks, 0 hits allowed. Then on the defensive side of the ball, just again, because we only have a minute, Quinyon Mitchell, Ray, is he finally a superstar? He had a 92.0 coverage grade and 2 interceptions on 5 targets.
Damn. Yeah, that's why they're winning games. I said it about Cooper DeJean. Quinyon Mitchell's a superstar. Yeah, he's I can't believe the league let the Philadelphia
Let that
Eagles
happen.
draft Quinion. How
Every
do they keep
year,
doing
man?
this? They can't keep getting away with this. They can't keep getting away with this. Shame. Good for Quinion Mitchell.
Shame. Very good. All right. Last guy I want to mention before we have to hang it up. Craig Woodson. Have you heard of Craig Woodson? Because if you haven't, it's time you did. 4th round pick in this rookie draft. Started all year at safety for the Patriots. Pretty rough go. 4 games with a 70 overall grade, 60 or 50 for the rest of the season. So not a great season. But in the 2 playoff games, 77.4 against the Chargers and a 90.3 against Houston. 0 missed tackles in both games. 2 stops, an interception, and 2 pass breakups. Craig Woodson, okay, safety for Pittsburgh. For the Patriots. Go look him up. Might be a guy that's worth stashing and seeing what can come of him. But everybody, we do have to run. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. Have a great rest of your day.